Good morning, everybody. We're still talking about SQL servers. We're talking about the two different ways, two different vocabularies that you use in working with SQL. SQL. It was actually spelled SQL in the beginning, but we're not worried about that. There's a data definition language, the data manipulation language. Data definition is what you use to actually design and make modifications to the database and to the tables themselves, changing structure, adding things, taking things away, renaming them, things like that. Usually don't rename things. You just kind of add things to them. Databases are like that. Everything is typically ordered by a schema, and depends on which database that you use as to what schema everything kind of fits into. Kind of the overarching, how would you even say? The overarching concept things are based on. Like, say, for instance, the one I'm a little more familiar with, I am not a great database person at all, is Oracle. And the schemas there are based on users. And so everything's kind of separated up into what users are using. And everybody who uses the database ends up being a user on it. Now that we've got web-based access to databases, you might not be treated like a user. There may only be one user for which all of your data gets funneled through. It doesn't matter. All web users are one user sometimes. It really depends on how your database is set up. The data manipulation language, the DML, is what gets used. I can't really say whether it's more or less. It gets used by different people. The data definition language gets used more by the designers of a certain database and what's inherent in it, its application, for the lack of a better term for it. The data manipulation language is used by the everyday people who do things. Now, more and more often, most people who use databases wouldn't know the data manipulation language at all, because it's buried in the logic of what's called your front end, like the application I'm thinking about, which is the one I use the most, Banner, from a company called Illusion. More and more, their front end, which is now becoming web-based, handles all that kind of logic for you, based on what it collects through forms and through different web pages, screens. It kind of builds up a SQL query, a statement, and or several of them. Usually, it ends up being as much programming as anything else is, and it produces what you ask for. But everything kind of gets translated by the front end into a whole lot of statements from the database manipulation language to get information, bring it in, and but you can also, and this is a feature that really at our university only 2 or 3 people really end up using SQL scripts directly to go and get specific information. People will call that person, and one of those people, and will say, I need this, and they will translate that request into SQL scripts that produce that data for them. And that's what data. That's how you talk to a modern relational database. Trying to think if there's anything else I really want to say on the subject of that. It's really in the end, once you grok it, it's very simple stuff. I've got to let you know that even though, well, I'm sitting here running this class too, I've actually got the day job, which one of my roles involves being the database administrator. And I'm really very poor at it because I'm not really a database guy, but I'm learning how to do it. And there's going to be a lot of situations where you're going to be kind of shoehorned into things that you don't come at with tons and tons of experience. If you end up working in IT, it's tricky from the standpoint of management too. Typically, you do not have enough resources to actually get the right people, with the perfect skill set right out. I think I've already talked about this a couple of times. I don't want to harp on it too much, except to say that sometimes you have to press people who might have the capacity to do it into doing it. My biggest issue is just time. There's so many things on the plate that getting good at being a database administrator starts falling off of the side just in favor of just keeping things running and hoping that the database designers, the guys that actually create this, the people who work for Ellucian, that they put together a good system and they can provide you the technical support you need. So all you have to do is kind of type in what they tell you to type in. And it'll hopefully solve problems and hopefully produce the results that are needed. I guess that's all I really have to say. Have a great day.